welcome back to Chart Wizard Trading. It's been a while since I posted a video or even a Bitcoin video. I can't remember what the last thing I said, but I focused mostly on my members and my mentorship. So all the comments I get demanding that I make a video and so on and so forth. Join the membership. I have videos all the time. If you don't need mentorship, then you obviously don't need to be watching these videos. So move on. But no, I'm not going to cave to your demands if you're demanding that I make a new video and whatnot. Okay? I make these because I enjoy analyzing charts. Okay? And if you'd like to learn my methods, then I have a mentorship program. It's at wavecounts.com. So today I'm just going to be focusing on this final fifth wave of Bitcoin. Okay. And how I have it labeled here. Okay. We turn on the waves here. This is that wave. Okay. This blue one here. Right, which could be done, or it's almost done. We'll get into that because I'm going to deep dive into this final fifth wave of the final fifth wave of the final fifth wave of the first wave. Okay, and this first wave goes all the way back to inception, back to 2009. So first thing we need to look at is, does it meet the rules? Right. The first rule of an impulse, okay, of any impulse, is that wave two, the second wave, so all of these ones, this two, this two, this two, this two, so on and so forth, okay, cannot break the low, right? They cannot retrace 100% of the first wave. And as you can see, this one does not, so on and so forth. All the way up. None of them retrace it fully. So that rule is satisfied. The second rule of an impulse is that the third wave cannot be the shortest wave. And as you can tell by this labeling here, the third wave is much, much longer than, you only need to be longer than one of them, but it's longer than both 1 and 5. Okay, this far. Even if 5, and there's opportunity for an extension here we'll talk about, okay? Even if 5 ended up being longer than this, it doesn't matter because it's longer than the first one, right? And that rule holds true all the way through, right? This first wave is shorter than this third one. We don't care how long 5 is, right? Because 3 is already longer than 1. It's just 3 can't be the shortest. It does not have to be the longest. It just can't be the shortest, right? Same with here, this third wave, already longer than 1, perfectly fine. This is not an impulse, therefore that rule doesn't apply. Just in this final wave here, okay? I would say that 9 times out of 10, the third wave is not the shortest in a diagonal, but as far as the rules go, there is no rule for that. So now that we have, right, and the fourth wave cannot go into the price territory of the first wave. You can see here in this yellow one, it does not. In this blue one, it does not. Okay, diagonal is a guideline that it will. Doesn't have to, but diagonal is different. I'm talking about an impulse. All right, an impulse, and the third wave has to be an impulse itself. All right, the first wave does not have to be an impulse. The fifth wave does not have to be an impulse. As you can see, I have this one labeled as an ending diagonal. The fifth wave is allowed to be an ending diagonal. First wave is allowed to be a leading diagonal. The third wave must be an impulse. And you can only have 2 extensions in an impulse. That's it. Most impulses, the grand majority of impulses, only contain 1 extension. There's more impulses with an extension than there are impulses with no extension. Okay, so most impulses contain 1 and only 1 extension, and that's what we have here. The third wave extended, the first and the fifth are not. Now let's dig into some guidelines, all right? And pulled up the first guideline here, and this is the guideline of alternation. Okay, and this is directly from the book. If wave 2 of an impulse is a sharp correction, expect wave 4 to be a sideways correction, and vice versa. Okay, so one of them will be sharp, and one of them will be sideways. Okay, and I don't have the figure here, but it shows, it's just a stick figure essentially of what that means, sharp and sideways. Okay, now this is important too. Sharp corrections never include a new price extreme. Okay, so you say, oh, what is sharp, right? Is this sharp because how much percent does it have to retrace to be sharp? It's telling you right here. Sharp corrections never include a new price extreme, one that lies beyond the orthodox end of the preceding impulse wave. They are almost always zigzags, single, double, or triple. Occasionally, there are double threes that begin with a zigzag. Okay? Sideways corrections, on the other hand, include flats, triangles, double and triple corrections. They usually include a new price extreme, one that lies beyond the orthodox end of the preceding impulse wave. So keep that in mind as I go through the guidelines of this, and I've labeled that, color-coded it by each impulse. Okay, so this first one, you see 5 waves up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then a correction. So that is a zigzag correction. So now we want to see if it alternates with the 4th wave. Let's go to the blue, right? Because this is the 4th wave of this impulse. And we have a flat correction, an expanded flat, A, B, C. According to the book, that's alternation. We have a sharp correction that does not create a new price extreme, and we have a flat correction that does create a new price extreme in the B wave. That's alternation. We can even look within the extension here, the yellow wave. I'll turn the lines on so you can see it. Okay? The yellow extension. 2 is a flat. That's why it says usually wave 2 is sharp, and vice versa. Okay, so therefore, if the second wave starts as a flat, and we have a new price extreme, look at that, right? One has a new price extreme, and the other does not. As you can see, this is a zigzag with a B wave flat that does create a new price extreme, but the B wave itself, no part of the B wave, creates a new price extreme. That's a zigzag. The B wave itself is a flat, but the entire structure is a zigzag. So you have a flat that creates a new price extreme and a zigzag that does not. That's alternation. So we now see the entire impulse and the extension within the impulse is meeting the guideline of alternation. So that's one guideline. This is evidence, guys. This is evidence. This is saying, do we have a structure that meets the rules of an impulse? We do. Okay, we do. We've checked all the rules. This structure is the appropriate amount of waves, and it meets the rules, and it meets the guidelines of alternation. But there's other guidelines with an impulse too, and I'll show you those that this specific impulse is exhibiting. Now, does every impulse exhibit every guideline? No. They don't, because then they'd be rules, wouldn't they? But they're not. So now we have the guideline of equality, okay? Wave equality. It says one of the guidelines of the wave principle is that 2 of the motive waves in a 5-wave sequence will tend toward equality. This is generally true of the 2 non-extended waves when one wave is an extension. So that's what we have here. Two non-extended waves, and we have one wave that is an extension. And it is especially true if the third wave is the extension. Well, that's what we have. So this is the exact description of what this is. If perfect equality is lacking, a 618 multiple is the next likely relationship. Okay? And when waves are larger than intermediate degree, the price relationships usually must be stated in percentage terms. Okay? So here I have this label. Now, degree is admittedly subjective. Okay? But I have this labeled as a primary degree. Right? A final fifth wave, and these are primary degree waves inside of this wave, which is larger than intermediate degree. Okay? So this first wave, and I got this down to the penny, by the way. I used the magnet to put these in here. 63.24%. Okay? Now, nothing is exact. Okay? Humans are imperfect, and they create imperfect waves. Okay? The fifth wave, thus far here, 66.9%. Okay? That's pretty dang close. Pretty dang close to the guideline of equality. I will tell you right now, you're never going to find one that is exactly equal to the penny. Okay? This is hey, is this about equal? And I would say, and I hope you would say, if you look at it and say, yeah, that's about equal. If you say, oh, I gained 63% and I gained 66%, that's about the same, isn't it? That is roughly equal. So now we have an impulse wave that meets all the rules and several guidelines, including subwaves meeting guidelines. So I'm going to bring up another chart. I'm going to pause you real quick, and we're going to deep dive into this final wave, which I have labeled as a diagonal. Okay. This is a deep dive down now into just that final wave. Okay, so this was that fourth wave of larger degree, and as you can see here, this was labeled as a expanded flat. Excuse me. Right. This is a double zigzag. This is a zigzag, and this is a diagonal. Okay. 3, 3, 5 flat for the fourth wave. And now we're into the fifth wave diagonal. Now turn on, this is the highest degree here. I'm going to turn on the line so you can see. Okay, and we'll talk about the rules of a diagonal. Now the rules of a diagonal, this being a contracting diagonal, okay, is that so what qualifies as a contracting diagonal is if 2 is bigger than 4, then 5 must be shorter than 3. That's the rule. And the other rule is that every wave, okay, 1, 3, 5, 2, and 4, they all must subdivide as some sort of zigzag, okay? Something in the zigzag family. So we'll look at wave 1 first, okay? And the highest degree of wave 1, okay, it must break down as, that actually begins down here, is some sort of zigzag family. So this being a double zigzag, okay? And a double zigzag must break down into 2 simple zigzags, Okay, that's a rule of a double zigzag, is that both W and Y must be simple zigzags, meaning 5, 3, 5 zigzags. Okay, and I've broken that down for you. So we can look at just the first W here, in the highest degree in just the W. Remember, the W wave must, by rule, must be a simple zigzag, 5, 3, 5. Cannot be a double zigzag. You can't have a WXY as a W. The book is very clear on that. Okay? You can only have a simple zigzag as a W. Expanding diagonal here as the first wave. Okay, I'm sorry, this would be a contracting diagonal. Contracting diagonal here is the first wave. Okay, that's A, so 5, A, triangle, B, impulse, C, A, B, C, W. Okay, then we move on to the X wave, all right, which is a flat. So inside of the flat, we have a flat A wave, so that's 3, so 3, 3, 5, right? That's what a flat is. The first 3, this A wave, is a zigzag. Okay, then you have a zigzag B, and then you have 5 down. 3, 3, 5, flat for your X wave. Go ahead and turn this off. Now we have, remember that's the W and that's the X, and now we have to have another simple zigzag as Y. Cannot be a double or triple zigzag, it has to be simple. Anything that is W or Y must be simple, 5, 3, 5, okay? So we have an impulse, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is a third wave extension of a bigger impulse, so we have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, triangle 4, 5. That's your A wave. Quick zigzag for your B wave, and then a diagonal. I can take this down smaller so you can see a little more detail here. We were at wave 1. There we go. So then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a diagonal to end it. Okay? And that ends ABC, and that ends Y, and which as a result ends the first wave. Now we can move on to the second wave. Second wave, simple zigzag. A, B, C, 5, 3, 5 zigzag. So we have a diagonal A. We have a triangle, A, B, C, D, E, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, C. Okay, expanding diagonal, C. So the first one was a contracting diagonal, and then we ended it with an expanding diagonal. So diagonal to diagonal, A, B, C, triangle in the middle. Okay, and that's the second wave, just a zigzag, a simple zigzag. First wave, double zigzag. Second wave, simple zigzag. So far, rules are met. Everything within a diagonal must be some sort of zigzag. And we move on to the third wave. Okay, I'll expand this out a little bit so you can see it. So the third wave, another simple zigzag. Impulse here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A. Then we have a double 3. Okay, so you start with a flat W, a zigzag X, and then a triangle Y. So a flat to triangle combination. Okay, now this is the first double zigzag we've seen in this, so I'll touch on the rules a little bit. Anytime you have a W or a Y, the pattern must be simple. It cannot be a combination pattern. So this has to be a simple flat, 3, 3, 5. Okay, and this has to be, and this is a triangle, which is simple. Well, it doesn't have to be. This could have. It has to alternate. Okay, that's one rule of double threes and triple. They have to alternate. A double zigzag does not have to alternate. A double zigzag has to, like we did here, they both have to be zigzags, W and Y. right? But in a sideways move, what's called a double 3, then the first pattern must be different than the second pattern. They have to be different. That's a rule. And in this case, it is. So you have a flat W and a triangle Y. Triangles don't have combinations, so it's by virtue, it's simple. Okay, so A, B, C, D, E. This is what's called a barrier triangle. Okay, where B and D, if I were to throw labels on that, which I can quickly here, we have A, B, C, D, E. Okay, where B and D are roughly, they end at roughly the same point. Okay, and then A, C, and E can contract. All right, which means C cannot break the bottom of A, E cannot break the bottom of C. Those are all rules of a triangle, and it meets the rules. Okay, so you have, again, a flat to triangle combination for B, which is legal. B is allowed to be that. And then since you're looking at 5, 3, 5 here, right? Then C must be 5. Okay, C waves are always 5 waves. That's a little trick to know, unless it's a triangle. But I'm talking about between zigzags and flats, C waves are always 5 waves. In this case, if a zigzag, it's 5 waves, and you just have another impulse. So you have an impulse and an impulse. For a simple zigzag, 3. So now we have 1, 2, and 3, all meeting the rules of a diagonal. They have to be some sort of zigzag. The first wave being a double zigzag. Okay, and honestly, there's probably a way to make this a simple zigzag as well, if you really wanted to. Okay. You could, because you have the requisite amount of waves, it gets funny over here. So a double zigzag fits this mold better, and it also meets the rules. So it doesn't honestly matter if you make this a simple zigzag or a double zigzag in the first wave. Regardless, it meets the rules. You have zigzag family, zigzag family, zigzag family. Fourth wave also be in the zigzag family. Okay, and we have a double zigzag. So we have 5, 3, 5 here with a triangle in the middle. So a triangle. This is a contracting triangle. It's different than this one, which is a barrier triangle. 3 types of triangles, by the way. There are barrier triangles, contracting triangles, and expanding triangles. Okay? And now you can see 2 of them. This Y wave, a barrier triangle, where B and D are roughly end at the same price. And you have a contracting triangle where B and D contract. Right? A, C, and E always contract in both a barrier and a contracting triangle. Exactly the opposite for an expanding triangle, which there is none in here. So I don't have one to show you in this chart. But anyway, simple zigzag, W. Remember, W has to be simple. Whatever you want to call this, X, you can call it a zigzag. You can call it a double zigzag. It's probably a double zigzag. Getting kind of small for me really caring, but you can see on this time frame, you can go 1, 2, 3, W. This little globule here is an X, and then you got 3 more waves like that. So you can say that X is a double zigzag as well. Doesn't particularly matter. It's corrective. We know it was corrective because the low broke, and that breaks a rule. It can't be impulsive if the low breaks, right? So we have, anyway, simple zigzag 1, or W, excuse me, zigzag family X, and then this has to be a zigzag, right? It can't be 5, it can't be anything, it has to be another zigzag, right? So then you have a diagonal A, zigzag B, and another diagonal for Y. A, B, C, simple zigzag, so W and Y are zigzags, making one larger pattern of 2 zigzags, which is a double zigzag, which ends 4, which is also meets the rules of a diagonal. Now this is where it gets tricky, and I have this red line here for a reason. Okay, this red line is just signifying where this wave 4 low breaks, and that's important. I didn't put any higher degree labels on this because we're going to talk about multiple scenarios. And this 5 is going to be fluid. Okay? So, like we said, 5 has to be zigzag family, right? Well, here is a little tip. Nearly every zigzag combination can also be a diagonal. And every diagonal also meets the rules for a zigzag combination. And the only way you truly know is when a rule breaks, which is why this red line is here. Okay? So I have now broken down a series of zigzags. So I got ABC zigzag, right? Here's another little zigzag. We have an ABC zigzag, an ABC zigzag, an ABC zigzag. All zigzags in here. Okay? This is not an impulse. However, there's 2 ways to label it. Here's the first zigzag. Remember, W's are always simple. Simple zigzag. W's always have ABC inside. They cannot have WXY inside of a W. You can't have it. It's a rule. Okay? You have a little zigzag here. X. You have A, B, C. Expanding diagonal, by the way, in A, right? That's why I have these little lines here. A, B, C, Y. A, B, C, another X. A, B, C, Y. W, X, Y, X, Z in the zigzag family. So that meets the rules that this 5 can be done. But we don't know yet. Because why? Let's get rid of that for a moment. Whoops. Because what did I just say? Nearly every zigzag combination can also be a diagonal, and every diagonal also meets the rules of a zigzag combination. So I can go like this instead. 1, same exact waves. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? And I'll just change the degree on that so it fits correctly. Now the only thing you have to double check here is does it meet the rules. Okay? Here's wave 2, here's wave 4. That's the first thing you look at. 4 is longer than 2, so that means that 5 must be longer than 3. That's the only thing we care about right now. We have all the zigzags inside. The same thing we did on this huge zigzag getting to this point is the same rules in this little one. I'm sorry, diagonal, where there's zigzag family in every single move, right? This is the same rules here. They don't change based on what degree you're talking about. So now all I have to do is measure to make sure that this 5th wave is longer than this 3rd one. And if it is, let's zoom in real close. I'm looking at the 1-to-1 extension is what I'm doing. 100% of the length of the 3rd wave. This one should be longer. Okay? And if we zoom in real close, you can see that that exceeds that line. So therefore, that is also a legal diagonal. An expanding one, but it's also a legal diagonal. Okay? So both of those things, they meet both of those rules. Both rules are met. The zigzag combination and the diagonal. Okay? You could have done the same thing here, right? And say that this was at least beginning a diagonal, but guess what? The high broke. So it can't be. This is done now, right? Why is this red line here? Why did I put that here? So I know which one it is, right? If this red line breaks, then it has to be the WXYXZ. Has to be. Because you've broken the wave 2 rule. Right? You can't end on 5. on this. It has to be zigzag family. So it has to be WXY if this breaks, right? Until then, this could be 5. That's why I said this is fluid, right? There's still a scenario on the table, at least as of this recording, that you have 5, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like so, that will make a new high. Okay. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit because you saw I just measured that, right? The 3 and make sure that's bigger, right? Now this is a contracting. I'm going to go to a bigger time frame so I can measure it. Okay. With what I just drew. We see now that this meets all the rules of an ending diagonal, right? A diagonal, an ending diagonal. The only thing it means is that it's the end of something, right? Meets all the rules. So now let's do the same measurement, right? Well, you can clearly see that I don't have to measure it, but I'll do it anyway. I'll measure 2 onto here. We're just looking at this 100%, okay? And it doesn't not reach it. This 4 does not reach that line. So therefore it's shorter. So if that's shorter, then 5 must be shorter than 3. That's the rule. So now we just need to measure 3. And thus far, okay, here's the one we're looking at. I'll just turn off all this other garbage so nobody's confused. There, now we're just looking at the 1. So far could this be done? That's the question you ask yourself. Could this be done? We have a sufficient count for it to be done. Yes. It does not exceed the 100% extension. So therefore it's legal. If we get 5, 3, 5 like this, that's why I said this 5 is fluid right now because it's up to its open interpretation of what that is. It just can't exceed this. And you have a legal ending diagonal. Now, I will say, from a probability perspective, all right, I'm going to come down lower. I will say that from a probability standpoint, just based on what I'm seeing and how deep this has come so far, that this is probably not the correct labeling. The correct labeling is very likely this. And the reason that I say that, whoops, I clicked the wrong thing. I needed that one. There. The reason I say that this is very likely the most probable labeling and that goes there, okay, is that this is really, really, really deep. We were a mere few $100s from invalidating this as 5 waves, which means it's probably going to break. The rule's the rule, though. Until it does, that other interpretation is open. All right. Now, secondly, another thing landing towards probability is this channel line here. And if I extend this out, okay, when you do, this is just a guideline. That's all it is. Okay, it's not a rule. But whenever you are labeling a diagonal or a triangle, you connect the ends, okay, and that just gives you barriers per se, right? They're not rule barriers, they're guidelines, okay? The rule is that this low can't break in order for this to be not done, okay? But if we look at the guideline here, we have broken underneath that, back tested it, and continued lower. Probability-wise, it's most likely done. And this is a complete diagonal. But like I said, it has not broken the rule yet. And until it does, and you may be watching this and the rule may be already broken or not, I don't know. Right? Because my members get to see this stuff first. And they've already seen this whole breakdown already. I've showed this to them a week ago. We're already well ahead of the game on this. But for YouTube here, you're seeing this very late. And, well, that's what you get for free. So that is the breakdown, regardless. Okay. As far as this goes right now, just this little bit, well, we don't really have enough information yet. We can certainly count this as yet another double zigzag, right? So you can go 5, 3, 5. Remember, W has to be simple. Whoops. We can count it. That's a W. There's his, a zigzag for X. Okay, and this is ambiguous. That potentially could be 5, but probably not. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. C. Right, if I took an even smaller thing, right, you see that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Boom. C. Right? And now it's started up. That's a potential labeling for if this were 5, right? The 5 waves labeling instead of the W, X, Y, Z. Okay, so 5, 3, 5. That would be the way to count it. Also, until you have something that is clear and obvious, this could just be the beginnings of an impulse, right? And there's lots of ways to label it, but I just said WXY here. That could be one of a leading diagonal. And then you're going to get a zigzag up to here, maybe back test this line. You get another zigzag, another zigzag, another zigzag. The whole diagonal thing we just talked about, right? That's a legal interpretation. Could be beginning an impulse, right? We don't have enough information yet, is the problem, right? This could be 1 maybe to here. And then you have a little flat, down, zigzag, right? That would be a flat to zigzag combination, little WXY. That could be 2. And this could be another 1, 2. That could be 3, 4, and you're getting 5. Or it could be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Until you have something clear and obvious, right? You're not sure yet. But if this breaks, okay, it's over. It's done. This whole move, at a minimum. At a minimum. Oh. At a minimum. This whole move from 75K is complete. At a minimum. Now we could talk about the extension. Okay, because what did I say at the beginning? We have an extension in the third wave, right? And you could have 2 extensions by rule. You can't have 3, but you can have 2, right? So this could end the whole thing. You don't have to have another extension. Or this could be a leading diagonal as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then that would be the end, right? We don't know yet. Until this breaks, 75K breaks, then you know that that's finished. Just like you know that this one's going to be finished if this line breaks. If that line breaks, then you know for certain that that's finished. Until then, you have to use probability and what you're seeing and what you're counting, right? And you place your bet. Okay? Let me put that back where I had it because I have an alert on it because I want to know if that breaks. Okay. So that these are all possibilities, okay? However, let me go over something that I saw like in the internet. out there somewhere. And I'm just going to pull up a different chart here. I think this is Binance or something. Yeah, doesn't particularly matter. I've seen some people counting like this, and I'm going to tell you why this is wrong. Okay, so some people are counting that this is 1, 2, 3, and this is going to be a flat. We get 5 down here, right? 4 and 5. Okay, couple reasons why this is wrong. One, is there a way to count this as an impulse? Yes. So I'm going to skip over that part. Okay. This one's ambiguous, this move here. First of all, in order for this to come down here and be a flat, you've already overlapped. Okay. You already overlapped the first wave. So that already makes it so it can't be a 4. The second thing is there is not a way to make this move here. Okay, there is a way to make this an impulse. There is not a way to make that an impulse. Can't do it. That's a zigzag all day long. Okay, you can't. The third wave has to be an impulse if you're going to have an impulse. So that is completely wrong. You can't do that. Okay. Now, what I've seen other people doing this. Okay, and that they have 1, 2. Turn those off. And say, okay, it's not a fourth wave. It's another second wave. Like that, because the second wave can be a flat, right? Yeah, but your first wave has to be 5. And it's not. This is a zigzag all day long. I will concede that this can be 5. There is a way to make this an impulse legally, following the rules. There is not a way to make this one. This is a zigzag. So therefore, a rule of an impulse is that wave 1 has to be 5 waves, whether that be an impulse or diagonal. You cannot make this 5 waves. It's only 3 waves. So it cannot be 1. Therefore, this labeling is incorrect. Cannot be. Okay? Now there's some off the wall things you can do legally here, because you remember this here was 5, 3, 5, right? 5, this regular zigzag, 5, 3, 5, right? Knowing that that's 5 and that's 5, it's only 3 total, but you have sets of 5. So you could, like say, this is some really off the wall stuff, okay? But you could go 1, 2. You can make that 3 because that's also 5. As long as this doesn't come down here, you can make that 4, and then you get a push up to be that 5. I don't see how you have enough room then, because then you need a fourth wave, right? Then you need to come in, and the fourth wave guideline is the terminus of the previous fourth wave, right? Which would probably end somewhere around here, right? Well, then you're in the price territory of your first wave. So if you don't like that, then you're relegated to say, okay, well, that's 1, 2, and then all that's a 1 as well. And then and then that's okay if it overlaps because it's just another 2. It's legal, right? Until it isn't. My point in this exercise is you follow the most probable things first. And also, let's say that you label it like that, right? What did we talk about at the beginning? Alternation, right? Well, this created a new price extreme, so therefore it's a sideways correction. This also created a new price extreme, so therefore it's also a sideways correction. You have no alternation. It's a guideline, but guidelines are important because they give you probability. So it's not probable that that's the case. I prefer to call a spade a spade. Right? It is what it is. And that would be a diagonal. Whether it begins something or ends something, that's to be determined. But as like I showed at the beginning of the video, we have equality between the first and the fifth wave. So therefore, probability dictates, because a guideline is met, that is very likely an ending diagonal and not a leading one. Okay, so we'll see how this pans out. I just wanted to share this analysis so you make your own decision. I'm just here to provide the analysis. If you're interested in learning this stuff, okay, you want to learn my methods, because there's a lot more than goes into it than just this. Okay, this is just the analysis part. I have a trading system. I have time analysis that lends towards probability. That's all available in my mentorship program at wavecounts.com. Till next time, you guys have a great one. We'll see you.